something. Anything. Anything but free.
Am I on? Can you guys hear me? Thank you so much. It was an honor to do that video and help write that song about recovery. 3 people getting together and just sharing our experience one day, and that came out, and we ended up doing a video, and it was a very powerful moment that God led us, to do something like that. My name is Mike. I'm a Christian in recovery from drugs and alcohol. My sobriety date is May 25th of 2017. How you doing? How's it going? All right. Well, before I start, because I'm a little nervous, I need God's help. This can't be me tonight. So, Father God, just get me out of here tonight. Let this be all you. Let this mess be a message all about you and your glory. In the name of Jesus, amen. All right. I wrote these words because they're big, so I wouldn't have to wear my glasses. But now the light's shining on it. So, all right. Okay. Well, I have a sponsor who has a sponsor, and I have sponsees today. I was born in Yonkers, New York, February 7th, 1969. I started using and drinking when I was 15. I actually couldn't wait to go to my first real party outside the family when I first got into high school. I remember actually going to that party, drinking and using, and I was everybody else went to sleep but me and my cousin. I should have known like right then something was wrong. Everybody goes to sleep, and I kept drinking. We were actually raided my uncle's little cupboards in the morning, because they were away. Soon after that, I started smoking pot. Then I couldn't wait to use cocaine. It was the 80s, so it was like the in thing kind of to do. Actually, in the 70s, Time magazine had cocaine on the front cover saying it was the non-addictive drug. So that's what I grew up. It was socially acceptable then. I didn't have a clue what that would lead into. And I didn't realize that was the biggest lie of my life, starting to use cocaine. It was like Bill said in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous, in his story, he said he didn't know he was forming a weapon like a boomerang that would later destroy him, and that was me. So I used and drank as much as I could. I wasn't a lot of time, but I would always manage to throw that in there somehow, in some way. And then after a while, I was starting to lose focus on a lot of things, like school. I ended up quitting, getting my GED. I ended up leaving home, moving in with friends. From that point on, it was basically sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's the best way I can describe it. I remember a friend that I lived with actually saved a hit of crack for me. And this was like in the middle of the 80s, when it was kind of new at that time. See, I'm old right now. I'm showing my age right now. But it was crazy to think that, that he actually saved me a hit of crack all day long. He actually called me when I was at work. Now, I'm only like 17 years old. And he's like, dude, I got a hold of that crack. And I'm like, wow, save it for me, And he actually did. Later after so many years, he apologized for that. He had no idea where that would lead me. And at the time I started using acid and other drugs, I was pretty much a mess. It's funny to think, I suffer from alcoholism. I suffer from drug addiction. That same person that I grew up with used and did the same thing I did, except his life went this way, and my life went this way. He didn't suffer from alcoholism and drug addiction like I did. I didn't know that then. I started playing in bands, would do concrete work during the day. I was a good worker when I showed up. Then around 19, I started traveling around the country, playing in different bands. The party really increased. So I had a lot of fun, but I wasn't realizing the chaos that was going on in my life. It was good until I lost the power of choice. And I didn't even realize that at the time. I was an alcoholic and a drug addict. I was in denial now that I look back. At that time, I had already been in jail once for marijuana, and I didn't really think too much of that. Who cares, right? The first time that I ever thought I might have a little bit of a problem is when I was in Philadelphia and I was heading to Los Angeles. I was in a band. We were going to L.A., and I did a lot of drinking that week. It was the Monsters of Rock played that week. If you guys are my age, that was like a big thing in Philly. So I got to see my favorite bands, what I can remember of it. We were drinking a lot of Jungle Juice. I don't know if you guys know what that is. And then I was doing a lot of cocaine. And right before I left, we did a lot of cocaine, took a Quaalude, and I began to drive from Philly all the way to Los Angeles. So you can see how this is going to work out, right? So, I was driving. I left Philly with 2 other bandmates, and I woke up next morning on the side of the road, okay? I didn't realize. It's funny because we're sitting in the truck. To this day, it gives me goosebumps. I'm sitting in the truck, and the guys wake up, and they're like, dude, how'd we do last night? And I'm like, I didn't know what to say. I don't know where I'm at. And so I started driving, and luckily, I was kind of avoiding the question, and luckily, there was a sign. It said I-10, Texas, And I had, that whole week, I'm going to drive cross country, you know what I mean? And I didn't see half the country, I'll tell you that. I don't remember it. I'm lucky to be alive, lucky I didn't kill nobody. So anyway, I figured I had a problem. So after that, I turned to the first store and started grabbing more alcohol just because I had so much anxiety that I thought, I'll just medicate more. So I don't remember driving to the States to get me there. It was pretty crazy. I ended up in California for a couple of years. I lived in Hollywood. It was pretty crazy life. And then I lived in Chicago, New York, and then back to Florida. I can't explain the lifestyle, so I'm sure you're getting the picture, right? I have, at the age of 25, I had already been to my first rehab. I didn't take it serious. I didn't really think that I was bad. Imagine that. And talk about delusional. My grandfather at the time came and see me, and he found AA, and now he was sober. And he knew what I was going through, but being the selfish person I was, it didn't work, and I wouldn't see another rehab for 14 years. So after that, I got married to one of the girls I hang out with, and the reason we got married is because she was pregnant, and then we had 3 kids in 3 years. And it was definitely a toxic relationship. I had times that I would try to control my using and get good jobs and pay the bills. I actually did get good jobs, but they would fire me and, for putting up with all my crap. But eventually they would hire me again, and I would get myself together again, and then they would rehire me. It was like I build my life up a little bit, and then I'm my own worst enemy, and I would destroy it. Eventually I got divorced, and after that, 8 years of a toxic relationship. I was really, I gave myself like, all right, I'm getting divorced, I'm hurt, I'm not working no more, I'm gonna go out and get high for just a few weeks and just, and I'm gonna be okay, and I'll go back to my job after that. That's what I thought. But I didn't go back. So I was full force crazy. And when you don't have a job, and you got a terrifying drug habit like me, you gotta find ways to get high, So you can imagine. So I ended up, and all the time I'm getting arrested. I can't tell you my whole story. I've been arrested over 30 times. I could come here and tell you that. I don't want to tell everybody out there that, but at least when I come here, I could share that with you. I feel like we're together on this. So I spent a lot of times in jails. I got involved in some heavy criminal activity and was arrested for RICO racketeering. That really scared me at the time. I knew I was a drug addict by then, and I spent 15 months in jail waiting on a bond. When they finally, gave me one, they realized, this is not organized. This is me and a bunch of people being junkies, basically. They gave me a bunch of felonies, and they gave me a bond, and very manipulative creature, so I conned a bondsman that I know to let me out. No signature, no money, no nothing. And he just lets me out. So what do you think? I'm suffering from alcoholism. I'm suffering from drug addiction. See, I can't stop on my own. When I went to jail, it was going to change my whole life. And then I got out of jail, and what happened 2 weeks later, I ended up back in jail. 2 weeks I was out after doing 15 months. I did another 7 after that. So by the time it was all said and done, I had to go do 22 months altogether. Numerous felonies. I got out, and then when I got out of that, I knew I had to do something differently. So I went to the DATE program, and I dove into recovery the best I could at that time. I was there. I met people bringing in meetings. I learned about the steps. I learned how to go to meetings. Prior to that, when I went to meetings, I usually just sat in the back. Not saying you guys are bad for sitting in the back or nothing, but I was sitting in the back. I'm like, I don't know. I just didn't know how to go to meetings. So one of the things I learned in that DATE program is how to go to a meeting, how to get involved, and I did that. And I got a sponsor, and I really dug deep into the steps. My life changed, and things got really, really good. And during that time is when my relationship with God started, too. See, I never had a problem believing in God or Jesus. I just didn't know him like I do today, or like I did actually when I wrote part of this. I was like, you never believe in God, and you believe, but you walk like an agnostic. Like, God wants you to go this way. Yeah, I believe you, and here I go this way. And that was the story about me. I was walking around years like an agnostic while believing in him. It was then that I started to have a personal relationship with him when I first got sober. So things were good for about 3 years and 11 months. So me and the kids, we got a house. I ended up good with a good job, and I even got married after 2 years in recovery. I started playing in a Christian rock band with some guys in recovery, and I was doing a deal, and it was really cool. I even got baptized in a church I was attending. Later then, my pastor moved away, and then I was introduced to this church right here, Grace Church. John Nichols actually brought me here one day. And I got to meet some amazing people, Pastor Arlene, Chris Jackson, Frank, many people that were here at that time. The church became my home, and I ended up playing bass on the worship band too. It was good, and about 3 years in, so remember, I had 3 years, 11 months. My sponsor would tell me I only had 3 years, because this is what happened. I was good for about 3 years, and I started to stop doing the things that were keeping me sober. And then 11 months later, what happened? That little thought jumped up. See, I'm an alcoholic, and I had to learn the hard way. I'm an alcoholic. I like drugs, don't get me wrong, but alcohol has always been on the table. Why? It's reliable. It's reliable. I know what I'm getting when I do that. And every time I quit using drugs, I become an drinking in the mornings, thinking I could fool probation and all that stuff. I realized, so that's what took me out, basically, is not doing these. I went backwards through the steps. I stopped helping people. I stopped taking inventory, and then, I'm not turning my thoughts and actions over to God no more. I stopped praying, and then I took we out of the first step, and bam, a little demon pops up on my shoulder and goes, you can have a drink. And what did I do? I had a drink. And then what happened? I went home and nothing happened. And then the little demon popped up and said, see, I told you overreacted. Just stay away from the drugs. But what happened? 3 weeks later, they are pulling me out of trap houses, It's, this disease is cunning. It's powerful, it's baffling. I tried coming back and going to another rehab and going to meetings, and I was half measuring everything this time because now my bag filled back up with remorse and shame and guilt. Couldn't look the world in the eye anymore. And then I forget to mention that my wife at that time commits suicide while I was in rehab. This disease is powerful, and needless to say, I just go to meetings, measure everything, I relapse again. And this time it got bad. My allergy kicked in again, and I spent 2 years in and out of jail. But in April of 2017, I got out of jail, and I was put on probation for a second-degree felony. Can't tell you all these things. I don't have time. But while I was in, they gave me another charge 8 months in for a second-degree felony. While I was in there, they were building this case. So, when they gave me an option. Look, you could stay in jail, which wouldn't have been that bad. To tell you the truth, I kind of knew how to go to jail after a while. Be trustee, be a dog handler. Isn't that bad? Been to jail times. And then I asked the public defender, well, what else do they offer me? And he said, probation, but you don't want that. You violated 5 state probations. Now, I'm sitting in jail for how long? Suffering from alcoholism and drug addiction. I'm not going to meetings. I'm not doing nothing. What do you think I chose? I chose probation. Why? Because I want to drink. I'm restless. I'm irritable. I'm discontent. So I get out, and, I go to the probation office, and bam, I put my little fingerprint on, and I wait for the call. And the worst thing you can tell somebody that suffers from alcoholism and drug addiction, she says to me, I'll see you in 3 weeks. Now, 3 weeks. So I'm already been drinking. I suffer from alcoholism and drug addiction. And what happened in them 3 weeks? You think I went to see her? But I had all plans to go see her. See, I can't stop once I begin. And what happened that day? I died 3 times. I OD'd. I don't know if there's anybody died in here. I'm sure some people have. I don't remember that day. I don't know. All I know, I woke up into a hospital with paramedics around me. They weren't too happy, but one was. I asked what happened. They said, talk to this guy because we were calling time of death. And he stood there with me, and I don't remember. I feel like I was on Saving Private Ryan the way he was talking to me, and he said, was it worth it? Because he knew my history. And that meant a lot to me, but you think that stopped me? No. And I'm telling you guys this for a reason, because I'm going to get to what really, works. That did not stop me. I was trying to get that same drug that killed me. I'm walking around in tubes in the hospital causing chaos. It's crazy, right? I lost my place. Sorry, Rochelle, I got off. Yeah, I do. I actually do. All right, I got this. All right, thank you. So what happened was, I got out of that hospital. I didn't have the hustle in me no more. And I walked around like a dead man, spiritually just bankrupt. And I set a foxhole, and I don't know, my mom and daughter were driving by. It's not that big of a coincidence. They didn't live too far. They picked me up. I didn't want my daughter to pick me up. My daughter was going to come pick me up and tell me, that's it, we're done. You haven't seen your grandchild since she was born. See, I got out of jail 3 weeks before that, and I didn't go see my family like I planned on doing. So, I convinced my daughter. She said, now she tells me, I remember that day because you really looked like you needed help. And so I waited to get into detox. I'd like to tell you I was sober waiting to get into detox. No, I conned my daughter into getting me drugs, so I got to detox. They literally had to kick me out the door and throw me into detox. So when I went to detox, man, what an experience I had. I don't know, something happened in there, maybe, I don't know. I was in Miss JJ's office, and maybe for the first time in my life, I believed the ABCs they talk about in the book, that I was powerless over alcohol and drugs, and that my life was unmanageable, that no human power can relieve my alcoholism and drug addiction, and God could and wouldn't if he saw it. I actually believed that. I believed that. I was having a first step experience. She had some music going on. I cried like a baby in there, and she said, with the power of Jesus, you could change your whole life. And, I stayed for 5 days. I stopped taking the meds they gave me. I don't suggest that for everybody, but I was done. I was like, I'm done. I can't do this no more. And I got a hold of Carrie Ann, and on May 25th of 2017, that's my sobriety day, I left detox. And I called my sponsor again. I really didn't think he'd want to hear from me, but I got to admit, see, these people in these rooms, they were praying for me, and they loved me, and love came through that phone, and it was awesome. I was amazed that he still cared about me. I called this guy Scott. I went to a meeting. I thought they rewrote the big book again. It just made sense to me. In the first meeting I went to, it was all about the doctor's opinion. And basically I'm screwed. I'm screwed unless I get help. I went to TLC after that for 2 weeks later. During that time, I was going to a lot of meetings, talking to my sponsor every day, told him that I needed these steps bad. I knew these steps would make me feel better, and being an addict, I needed to feel better. So I began reading the big book again, and I also started reading my devotional that my mom gave me called Every Day with Jesus. So I went to TLC for 28 days, called my sponsor, and one of the last weeks I was there, he came. He was a speaker, and I remember that day because, we've been talking all the time. He says, are you done? Are you done? And I already know you believe in God. Are you ready? So he took me right there in front of everybody. Not that everybody was watching me, but right there in the middle of the room, we did a third step prayer. And it was very powerful for me at that moment. I really started to feel the power of God again. I left a couple days later, and I launched right into the fourth step. I moved to Carrie Ann's house, and with nothing. I didn't have anything this time, and I didn't even care, man. I just wanted this to stop. I didn't care if I got a job again. I didn't care about this. I don't care about that. I know I just trust you, God, because this has got to stop. I want to kill myself. So, I really trusted God. So since the halfway house was right near Grace Church, I was able to go to church one morning. I was scared at first. I really didn't want to come back in here. And it was an amazing scene. I saw Chris Jackson. He's not here anymore, but he used to always give it to me straight. He's one of them guys. Gave it to me straight. So I was like, oh, there's Chris, But the dude walked up and he hugged me. And he told me that he loved me and that he was praying for me. We cried. It was great. I felt like the prodigal son coming back to this church. I really did. The Bible was coming alive in me. Pastor Ed gave me a hug. Other amazing people, too. I can't name everybody. You guys are just awesome. The next day blew my mind. It was when I walked in. And at that time, it was Celebrate Recovery. And this is when I was just blown away. And everybody knows this story. But if you're new, this is going to be new to you. Rochelle here was leading Celebrate Recovery. She looked different. She was glowing. She wasn't the Rochelle I knew in and out of these meetings. I've seen her get so many white chips. I hate to put you on the spot. So many white chips. She used to be like 80 pounds, dragging around 3 kids. No, just teasing. I used to really feel bad for her. I was like, but she never stopped trying. So when I saw this time, she was a new creation. And from that moment on, I don't know if she realizes how powerful that was for me. It gave me hope, because I've relapsed a bunch of times. So this church was my home again. And I dove into the Recovery Bible, and I got really into the big book. and with the steps. I went to a park to do my 5th step. It was freeing, you know. I also felt the 3rd step promise after I did the 5th step promise. I remember it felt also when I was reading the stories in the Bible, like Nicodemus, that you were, you know, that story about that I felt born again after that. I really did. And the Bible was coming alive in me. And after I went home, I followed the instructions. You know, I spent time with God, prayed a lot, powerful. God put in my heart to start reading Romans again. You know, I believe that's all about recovery. I don't know. He was writing that about us, I think, you know. So, you know, just like it says that nothing good lives in me is in my sinful nature. And I also learned that I need to put the armor of God on so I can stand firm against all the strategies of the devil. And that came from Ephesians 6:10 through 20. I've done a lot of amends. God keeps revealing more and more to me. I feel the 9-step promises today. All the steps, a sponsor, the meeting, choose recovery. They brought me to have a close personal and relationship with God. You know, guys, I just keep this simple. Jesus said, I leave you 2 commands. Love God with all your heart and love thy neighbor as thyself. And I just try. I try to do that the best I can. I practice, remember? Practice trying to be honest, pure, unselfish, and have love. I said practice. Sometimes these things don't happen, but I have these steps that, you know, it's like a code. Love and tolerance is my code. This is step 10 to me, doing 4 through 9 every day. So today is not about it's not about getting sober for me. Today's about staying sober. I've done that before and it never works. It's not just about getting sober, it's about staying sober. So first I had to understand what alcoholism and drug addiction was really about. That no matter what, I was going to drink and use again. And I suffer from a spiritual disease that only God can save me from. It's not about studying the big book or the Bible. It's about experiencing the actions taken from these books. Even when I don't understand them, I just do what they tell me to do. Today is also about carrying the message to others who suffer from this disease. There's no other experience like it. I feel close to God when I do this, when I'm praying and taking inventory. I feel the Spirit of God. The biggest thing I've learned from the Bible really is love. Love is an action. And when I take that action, I experience it. Am I perfect? No. Struggle today with a lot of things. But one thing I can tell you, I don't have to use over it, though. You know, it's all about the steps for me today. It's like one big step, you know, they all go together. It's about carrying a message to others, you know. One of the greatest gifts is having sponsees, man. They keep me sober. They don't realize that. And my recovery is a gift from God that I can never explain or ever repay. Paul says it best in the Corinthians 5 through 18 when he says, all this is a gift from God who brought us back to himself through Christ. Guys, I'd like to sit here and like brag, but I'm not bragging. This is God all the way. What my life is today. I'm going to be done in a second. What my life is today is just amazing. I would never, the guy coming in here with just nothing and all he wanted was just to stop. I sold myself short, you know. I get to play videos, you know. I started out working for $11 an hour at a paint company. I kind of own my own paint company right now. That's all from connecting with God. You know, my prayer today is, I don't know, let your will be done. I have no clue where God takes me. I just try to follow his path. So if you guys ever get a chance, please read the 10th Step Promise when you get a chance in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I feel that every day. It's a miracle that I sit up here and like this. I'm actually neutral today. It doesn't bother me no more. You know, but I imagine if I do like I did last time and go backwards through them steps, yeah, I'm going to use again. I know that. Kind of scares me a little bit. This is my medicine. You guys are my medication, you know, when I see you guys. And I'm up here, you know, my way of worshiping is banging my head. Well, that's me. That's what I do. You know, that keeps me connected. So thank you all for letting me share tonight.